Behind the gold-plated towers and trillion-dollar sovereign funds lies a reality most documentaries won't touch. GCC nations built empires on sand and oil, but what happens when the foundation cracks? From invisible populations to weaponized tech, these 10 truths will shatter everything you thought you knew about the world's richest region. Subscribe and support Dark Decoded X2 deep investigations every week. Share where you're watching from in the comments. Seeing our growing community from around the world always brings me purpose. Now let the investigation begin. 6 nations, 1 council, infinite contradictions. The Gulf Cooperation Council, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and Qatar, controls over 30% of global oil reserves and hosts architectural marvels like the Burj Khalifa. But beneath the luxury lies a darker blueprint: populations that don't exist on paper, justice systems that operate in shadows, and digital surveillance so advanced it makes Orwell look optimistic. This isn't propaganda, this is data. This is what they don't show in travel brochures. Number 10. Population. The ghost citizens. 90% foreign, 10% power. Who really lives in the GCC? The GCC hosts approximately 57 million people, but here's the shock. In UAE and Qatar, up to 88% are migrant workers with zero path to citizenship. Kuwait has 4.3 million residents. Only 1.3 million are Kuwaiti. Bahrain mirrors this pattern with 1.5 million people, where nationals are the minority. These workers built Burj Khalifa, paved highways, and served in homes, yet remain legally invisible. They cannot vote, cannot own property, and can be deported without trial. Average GCC per capita income sits at $30,000 to $70,000. But that's calculated including citizens only, excluding the millions who earn $200 monthly. Birth rates among citizens are declining while foreign dependency skyrockets. It's a demographic imbalance where the majority has no political representation and the minority retains all formal power. And this invisible majority is just the beginning of what's hidden. Number 9. Education system. Imported intelligence. Billions spent, yet critical thinking skills remain low. GCC nations spend over $150 billion annually on education, yet rank dismally in global innovation indexes. Saudi Arabia has 30-plus universities, but 70% of STEM graduates are unemployed. Qatar imports entire Western campuses, Cornell, Georgetown, and Texas A&M, yet local enrollment remains below 40%. The UAE boasts 100-plus international schools, but literacy and critical thinking lags. Rote memorization dominates. Independent thought discouraged. Kuwait and Bahrain face teacher shortages, relying on imported educators who don't speak Arabic. Meanwhile, Oman struggles with 8% youth unemployment despite education reforms. The region produces graduates fluent in English and Excel, but critical thinking and innovation lag behind technical skills. While education spending is high, the emphasis often remains on memorization over inquiry, limiting the capacity for independent thought and challenge. But what happens when bodies break down faster than degrees are handed out? Number 8. Health and well-being, the sickness beneath the surface. Diabetes epidemic, mental health crisis, all hidden behind wealth. GCC nations face some of the world's highest diabetes rates. Saudi Arabia, 18%, UAE, 16%, and Kuwait, 15%. Obesity affects nearly 40% of adults. Why? Sedentary lifestyles, processed diets, and a culture that equates wealth with excess. Mental health? Taboo. Depression and anxiety are unspoken epidemics, especially among migrant workers living in labor camps. With no healthcare access, Qatar spent $8 billion on World Cup stadiums, yet mental health facilities remain sparse. Bahrain has 1 psychiatrist per 100,000 people. Oman sees rising youth substance abuse. Meanwhile, elite hospitals cater to citizens while millions of workers rely on overcrowded clinics. Life expectancy averages 77 years, but quality of life? That's a different story. The glittering skyline hides bodies breaking down in silence. And when those bodies seek justice, they find only shadows. Number 7. Law and justice, Sharia sovereignty and silence. No jury, no appeal. Justice decided behind closed doors. GCC legal systems blend Sharia law with civil codes, but transparency is nearly non-existent. Saudi Arabia executed 147 people in 2022. Beheadings still occur publicly in some cases. UAE has no jury trials. Judges appointed by ruling families decide verdicts. Bahrain imprisoned thousands during the 2011 uprisings. Many remain detained without formal charges. Kuwait criminalizes criticizing the emir or king. Punishment includes years in prison. Qatar abolished its kafala sponsorship system on paper, but workers still need employer permission to leave the country. Arbitrary detention? Common. Legal representation? Limited. Torture allegations? Documented by human rights groups. Sharia governs personal status law. Women need male guardian approval for marriage, travel, and even medical procedures in some cases. Justice systems in these nations often operate without the transparency found in democratic states. Verdicts can be selective, appeals limited, and accountability to international standards inconsistent. But if law doesn't protect you, do rights even exist? Number 6, human rights. The price of progress, migrant deaths, women silenced. Rights are a privilege, not a guarantee. The GCC built its empire on the backs of migrant labor, and thousands have died doing it. Reports estimate 6,500 plus workers died building Qatar's World Cup infrastructure. Heat stroke, unsafe conditions, withheld wages. UAE and Saudi Arabia face similar accusations. Women's rights? Improving on paper, suffocating in practice. Saudi Arabia lifted the driving ban in 2018 and introduced reforms, reducing some guardianship restrictions, yet significant limitations on women's movement, marriage, and employment persist in practice. Progress exists on paper, but implementation remains uneven. LGBTQ+ individuals face imprisonment, flogging, or death in most GCC states. Freedom of speech? Non-existent. Journalists, activists, and dissidents are jailed or exiled. Bahrain cracked down violently on protests. Dozens remain in prison. Oman bans political parties entirely. The glittering towers stand on graves and silenced voices. This is the foundation of GCC prosperity. And those towers, they're connected by roads built on something darker still. If you're still watching, you're ready for the truth. Hit subscribe. The darkest revelations are coming now. Number 5, infrastructure. Gold-plated, but who paid? Mega cities. Built on blood, literal and economic, GCC infrastructure is world-class. Burj Khalifa, standing at 828 meters, dominates Dubai's skyline. Saudi Arabia is constructing NEOM, a $500 billion futuristic city. Qatar built 8 stadiums for the World Cup. Kuwait boasts highways and ports rivaling those of Europe. But who built it? Migrant workers earn $1 to $2 per hour, living in cramped labor camps, often with passports confiscated. Debt bondage is rampant. Deaths go unreported. Meanwhile, these nations import 90% of their food, making them vulnerable despite their wealth. Water scarcity looms. UAE relies on desalination, consuming massive amounts of energy. Roads connect cities but not communities. Public transport? Limited outside major hubs. Infrastructure here reflects not just engineering ambition, but also structural dependence on migrant labor, often working under exploitative conditions, and imported resources that raise questions about long-term sustainability. But who controls the vision behind these monuments? Number 4, politics. Absolute power, zero accountability. No elections, no opposition. Rule by bloodline forever. GCC nations are absolute monarchies or emirates with zero democratic process. Saudi Arabia's king holds absolute power. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman consolidates control through purges and reforms. UAE is ruled by 7 emirs. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan dominates. Kuwait has a semi-elected parliament, but the emir dissolves it at will. Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman follow similar patterns. Royal families rule, citizens obey. Political parties banned. Free elections don't exist, dissent crushed. The 2017 Qatar blockade by Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt revealed how fragile regional alliances are. Politics here isn't about people, it's about power preservation. Citizens enjoy subsidies, jobs, and housing as long as they stay silent. This isn't governance by consent. It's ruled by hereditary authority where loyalty is rewarded but dissent has no legal outlet. But even golden cages need money to maintain, and that money flows from a single volatile source. Number 3. Economics. Oil wealth, fragile foundations. Trillions in oil, but what happens when it runs dry? GCC economies rely almost entirely on oil and gas. Saudi Arabia produces 10 million barrels daily. Oil revenue accounts for 70% of exports. UAE diversified into tourism and finance yet remain oil-dependent. Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman face similar vulnerabilities. Qatar holds the world's third-largest natural gas reserves, exporting liquefied natural gas (LNG) globally. Total GCC GDP exceeds $1.7 trillion, but youth unemployment hovers near 30% in some states. Sovereign wealth funds, Saudi Arabia's PIF, UAE's ADIIA, and Kuwait's KIA total over $4 trillion, investing globally to hedge against oil decline. But diversification is slow. Vision 2030, NOM, and the tourism push by UAE aim to reduce dependence. But infrastructure, jobs, and economies remain tied to fossil fuels. When oil crashes, so does stability. And in this instability, something even more dangerous is emerging. Number 2. Digitalization. Surveillance. Disguised as innovation, smart cities. Smarter spies. Your phone knows everything. GCC nations lead in digital transformation, but at what cost? UAE ranks among the most surveilled places on Earth. Facial recognition, AI monitoring, and data collection are ubiquitous. Apps like ToTalk, marketed as communication tools, were exposed as surveillance software by UAE intelligence. Saudi Arabia has been linked to the use of Pegasus spyware to track dissidents globally. Journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in 2018, had been surveilled using such tools, according to multiple investigations. Qatar employs digital ID systems tracking residents' movements. Bahrain monitors social media for dissent. Activists have been arrested based on online posts. E-governance sounds efficient until you realize every transaction, search, and message is logged. GCC invests billions in smart cities, 5G, and AI, ostensibly for convenience. But convenience is control. Your data isn't just collected, it's weaponized. And when data becomes a weapon, actual weapons aren't far behind. Number 1. Weaponization. Armed to the teeth, but against whom? $180 billion in arms. Who are they really preparing to fight? GCC nations are among the world's largest arms importers. Saudi Arabia spent $75 billion on defense in 2023. The third most globally, UAE purchases F-35 jets, drones, and missile systems. Qatar hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman maintain significant arsenals relative to population size. Why? Iran, regional instability, and internal control. Saudi Arabia has been waging war in Yemen since 2015. Over 150,000 deaths and an ongoing humanitarian catastrophe. UAE deployed forces in Libya, Yemen, and Sudan. Weapons aren't just for defense, they're tools of regional dominance. Surveillance tech, cyber warfare capabilities, and drone arsenals expand yearly. GCC militarization isn't about protection, it's about projecting power, silencing dissent, and ensuring ruling families remain untouchable. The question isn't whether this military buildup serves purely defensive purposes. It's what regional order these nations are preparing to enforce, and at what cost. If this investigation opened your eyes, subscribe, hit that bell, share widely, and watch the next documentaries pinned on the end screen. 6 nations, infinite wealth, zero accountability. The GCC built empires on oil, silence, and the invisible labor of millions. But empires built on exploitation don't last. They collapse from within. The towers stand tall today, but foundations crack slowly. The question isn't if this changes, it's who survives when it does.